Welcome everyone to the 2 p.m. Living Their Best Life College Students in Recovery session. Anyone who wants to receive credits, you need to type your name in the chat box and indicate the type of credits you're looking for. Please be sure to complete the session evaluations. Your feedback is extremely important to us and will be considered when planning the future conferences and events. To access the evaluations, use the link pinned to the top of the chat, and there will be an evaluation for each session. To obtain the certificates, you need to send the attendance form. You will be sent the attendance form after the conference to complete and return to Teresa. And there's also the YVM survey and our policy survey. Please feel free to check those out and respond. So now I am pleased to welcome Ashley Dickson.
Hi friends, my name is Ashley Dickson and I am the Collegiate Recovery Program at Tompkins Community College.
Hi, Ashley. I'm having some technical difficulties. Are other people having those issues? Okay.
Can you hear me a little better now? My computer is lagging horribly.
I'm going to ask if Ashley, if you can refresh your browser. Just one moment, please, people. Feel free to enter information in the chat. What excites you about collegiate recovery?
All right, so Ashley is texting me as we speak. So while they reload, I'm going to introduce myself and then I'll have the other panelists introduce themselves as well. My name is Ashton Daly. I am still a young person. Technically, I'm 25. I graduated undergrad in 2018 from good old Slippery Rock University in the good old state of Pennsylvania. And then I got my master's in 2020 from University at Albany, and both degrees were in social work. And I'll pass it to Julia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Gutierrez. I'm a current student at Tompkins Community College, and my major is chemical dependency counseling. I actually graduate this December, which I'm really excited for, and I plan on working in the field. I'm not quite sure where yet, and it's kind of overwhelming, but I'm sure I'll figure it out soon. And I'm handing it off to Dana.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dana Gutierrez, and I just started my first year at Lemoyne College. I'm currently majoring in psychology, and I'd like to go into clinical psychology one day.
So Ashton, if you want to just start up some of the questions while Ashley is figuring their way back in.
Sure thing. All right. So how about we go in a nice little circle, I guess. So Julia, would you mind sharing with the panel and with all of our audience members, what does recovery mean to you?
I've been recovering from mental health stuff since I was in 8th grade, and I am 21 now. And I started abusing alcohol and marijuana in high school, so it must have been like 11th grade. And so my recovery journey has been nothing easy at all. And it's been a lot of healing, and there's a lot of up and downs. And last night I actually had a really rough night and was having alcohol cravings and stuff like that. And you have to reroute yourself and be like, okay, this is my why. I'm doing this because I need to. I'm doing this for myself. So that's kind of what recovery means to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Dana, would you mind going next?
So I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm 18 years old and I'm recovering from many mental illnesses. I've experienced and witnessed a lot of trauma throughout my childhood, and I was diagnosed with PTSD about 2.5 years ago, so I am in recovery for that. One thing that my therapist has really stuck out for me was like the saying of hope when recovery is like, hold on, pain ends. And that's something that has really helped me throughout my recovery, is just knowing that it will end one day, and you just have to hold on. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll go. So I am a person, I identify as a person in recovery from mental health, but part of that is in my mental health journey, what I need to do for me is I need to abstain from substance use, because similarly to the other panelists, it just turned into a bit of a dodgy experience after a while. And I found that to really deal with my issues and really conquer the things I am up against, I need to be at my most ready. And for me, that means complete sobriety. And I think Ashley is back.
We're going to try this. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. My apologies. I was promised a much better connection that I'm experiencing right now. But I am back. I know that everybody has kind of introduced themselves a little bit, and I am incredibly grateful for that. Thank you again. Was expecting a better connection. But to reintroduce myself, my name is Ashley Dickson. I am the Collegiate Recovery Program Coordinator at Tompkins Cortland Community College. And I am also a proud partner of Youth Voices Matter. And we have been working really hard to continue to improve what we are doing in terms of collegiate recovery. I know many of you probably just attended the Recovery High School conversation, and only 37 recovery high schools in the entire US. There are 143 registered collegiate recovery programs in the United States, and we're always looking to expand and make those programs exist on a much broader level. So yes, I am a person in long-term recovery, and a lot of what we do focuses on supporting students. So I know you've all shared what recovery means to you. Another thing that we wanted to talk about is, what resources do you use on your campus, and how have they been helpful to you? We'll start with Ashton.
So I honestly, this is more of a what was lacking, and but what resources I used instead. So I became very much involved in student groups, and I definitely used my student gym a lot. Fitness is something that I definitely use for my mental health. So I spent a lot of time there, and luckily their hours were pretty late into the night, which was very nice. I also utilized the library because it was a nice quiet place where I could really focus on my studies and just read for personal enjoyment. But I also utilized the student center, primarily the LGBT center and the women's center, because it was a nice, safe place where I felt that I could just exist and be around folks that I knew would accept me and be nice to me. And it was all really stellar.
There's a couple of different resources we have at TC3. Two of them are the Best Life Lounge and the recovery space, which I am in the Best Life Lounge quite often, and I find that the students there are the ones that like to be there, and I feel very safe and comfortable around them. Ashley's always in there, and there's a couple other people as well as the mental health counselors. I don't personally use the clinical counselors that we have on campus because I have one outside of college, but I know that if I needed them, they're there. And then I'm also down student activities a lot because I work as a student leadership assistant down there, and I'm also in student government. And so like everyone that I talk to, like my advisors and everything, they're all really supportive about the things that I've gone through and I'm going through. And it's just a really friendly space to be in.
So I just started college this year, so I don't really have that many places that I know yet, but I mainly just use my RAs and class advisors as of right now. They're my main support system. They help me through everything and just giving me the best advice. There's a confidentiality place on campus where I can go and talk with many counselors about anything, and I will probably use that in the future.
Beautiful. Thank you. What other resources do you look for on campus? I know, like Ashton said, it was what wasn't available. And certainly when I came back to school, we did not have the collegiate recovery program. It's something that we've been working on for the last 3 years or so. And so what else do you look for on your campuses, or do you wish had been there? I know Ashton's shared a little bit about that, but what else are we looking for?
I know personally, my experience as a grad student, a lot of times grad students and the PhD students are a little bit of an afterthought when it comes to collegiate programs. So as a grad student at UAlbany, I was primarily on the downtown campus just because that's where my department happened to be, but I didn't necessarily have access to the health center. There were posters about, there's a program called Middle Earth where it's a very peer-driven mental health crisis line almost. But outside of the posters that happened to be in the hallway, there wasn't a lot of advertising to graduate students. So I wish there was a little more outreach to graduate folks. For my undergrad experience, I wish the counselors were a little more comprehensive and they really incorporated that necessary peer bit. I know the counselors at my school, they were a bit prevented from providing that higher level of care that I certainly needed. And in their best efforts to transfer me out into more higher level of care, there wasn't really that warm handoff that I really needed, because in one's time of need, it's hard to ask for help and it's hard to take another load onto the back when things are already quite difficult to begin with. What do I wish existed? I am a huge advocate for peer work. Peers are the way. And I personally, watching Ashley do their thing at TC3 just warms my little heart because they've so thoroughly incorporated that peer bit, which is so fundamental to recovery.
So at TC3, there's a lot that they offer. And I know Ashton touched on some of the peer support stuff. I do wish that we had some more, like, I know we can't have like complete like therapy groups per se at a college, group work for people that need it. And I know that there's a lot of students struggling right now with the transition from everything online to a lot of it being in person. And I think if we just had that support, I think it would really help things a lot.
For me, I've seen many different schools have like separate rooms just for like not for relaxing and de-stressing, and I think that would be perfect in like every building at college, just because like in between classes I need some place to go and just de-stress and be like, oh my god, I didn't do so great on that test, but just relax and just take a moment. But I also think that if professors were more understanding and just more educated on mental health, it'd be a lot better, because I do have a couple professors that like remind us daily that our mental health comes before our schoolwork, and that's something that I need to hear pretty often. And I think a lot of students will also need to hear that. So I think it'd be great if professors would just be in with it. But yeah.
Thank you all so much. And we have some other questions that we've created, but also I want to open it up. I did start the Q&A before I got booted from my laptop. So please feel free to add questions into there if you want us to answer them. And I see that Chelsea has already said that, she wishes she had this in college and it would have led her down a very different path if you had other people to surround yourself with outside of the party scene. So can any of you kind of speak to like what it looks like to have supports on campus or to have that lack, and how it can really drive you in a different or better direction?
Okay. So I think it would have been so incredibly helpful to have more like student-led, and this again touches on the peer bit, student-led sober activities. I think that would have been great. I know my freshman year of college, every Friday night, the school hosted, and led by the student government, they hosted bingo. And it was in the big conference auditorium area. And it was nuts, but in the most fun way. And a bunch of people showed up, and the prizes were pretty cool. And I think that was a big driver, because it went from like 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., like that prime time of, well, my homework is done or I'm not doing it. What do I do? It's 9 o'clock and I don't want to go to bed yet. And bingo was really a great way to do it. Also during finals week, right, the Friday before finals week, they would open up the gym and open up the basketball court and get these giant inflatable bounce houses. And we would have this huge carnival style thing. And it was a great activity for us to participate in and be around our friends and be around our peers and just be in that safe, sober space. And it was really helpful because it prevented me personally from just sitting in my apartment alone with nothing to do. Because for me, boredom is a huge trigger when it comes to the things I'm going through, and really having something to do without overwhelming me intellectually is so incredibly helpful.
When I'm at TC3, I usually am in the Best Life Lounge a lot of the time. I've been going through a lot of stuff, so I've been which for me is kind of a bad thing lately because I get really in my head. So when I'm in the Best Life Lounge, I know that I can talk to Ashley or Sarah or the other students that are in there, and it's just a really great support system to have. Because I know, like, if I have a really bad night, I can go in and talk to Ashley, and they're going to be there for me, and it's just really helpful to have around.
My dorm building, about once a week. So we have girls in the first half and then the guys at the bottom half, and the girls will do something every week and the guys will do something every week, whether that just be like coffee and donuts or spa day. And it's just a nice way for me to get to know a bunch of other people, and then when I see them in class the next day, we have something to talk about. And it is very helpful just to know everyone and just to get to know everyone. But I think that, like Ashton said, peer work is everything, really.
I just want to throw in that I'm not paying Julia to say these nice things about me. But we do definitely love having her in the Best Life Lounge, which is actually a new thing just this semester that we created that at Tompkins Cortland is connected with our mental health services. We're working really hard to break down the stigma of accessing help for mental health issues. And part of that is we maintain the privacy of the mental health side, but also have this beautiful lounge where Julia mentioned my colleague Sarah got beautiful furniture in. We've got big screen TVs, and the goal is just to create a community among our students. And it's definitely really helpful during the day. Nighttime, Ashton was describing all of these really fun and exciting sounding events, and I'm constantly reminded of what's been taken away by the pandemic and how hard it has made people who are in vulnerable situations, like it's made it so much harder to access the social supports that we need. And I'm really excited to get back to those days. You know, Tompkins Cortland in the past has hosted really late night silent raves. We've done, I think right before the pandemic began, we had a late night St. Patrick's Day party. A lot of what we do ties in with prevention work as well, because we also have an OASIS grant for specifically alcohol and other drug prevention. So a lot of what we do tries to focus on opening up activities for students. So we have another question from Connie. How or what are the issues with stigmatization regarding the use of these services, particularly with those students who are actively using towards those students utilizing these services? And I think that is a really excellent question that I want to hear responses from our folks on.
Oh, there is so much stigma. Oh, there is so much stigma on both ends, on both the social, hey, because I'm still a person where I can go to bars, I can go to parties, and that's still a safe place for me to be in. And when someone says, hey, do you want anything? And I'm like, no, thanks, I'm fine. I always have a seltzer water handy. But people will ask like, oh, you don't drink? And not drinking is still relatively new to me, almost 90 days tomorrow. And people will still be like, well, why? I'm like, oh, it's just not healthy for me to do that. Because and it's easier to say, hey, it's not healthy for me to do that, or hey, I just don't, than explaining if this happens, then that will happen. And I would prefer not to, because that's just what's healthy for me and what's better for me. When it comes to the stigmatization of utilizing these resources, there is a lot. It's hard to say, hey, like I can't hang out later, I have to go to therapy. Because then sometimes people think, oh, what's wrong? Or, hey, what's going on? And sometimes it's maintenance, sometimes it's crisis intervention. And something I've learned is just to, in my own experience, to just say it point blank. Like, hey, sorry, I can't hang out. I got to go do this. Because I know it's something I have to do, because I unfortunately have the experience of not doing those things and having something happen because of that. And I have enough of that experience where I know that this is just something I need to do for maintenance.
To tag on to what Ashton said about the drinking piece, I lost all of my friends when I stopped using. And it was a very difficult thing for me to go through. And so for a long time, when I was looking for friends, kind of like the thing where I try to find people that don't drink and don't smoke. When it comes to the stigma piece, it's kind of like, oh, well, why doesn't she drink or smoke? And it's like, it's not something I like to share. I'm open to sharing it, but is it something that I want to go into depth with someone that I've just met? And then as for the mental health services on campus, I think a lot of it, I feel like a lot of it's embarrassment. I mean, it's difficult as it is to walk in somewhere and be like, yes, I need help right now. For me in high school, I was deemed crazy for the longest time because I would have panic attacks in the middle of the hallway. That was me. That was what I was known for. And so when you walk into the mental health office or someone sees you sneak in, it's awkward. It's a little bit embarrassing. And it was for me for a really long time.
Definitely would also like to just touch about the stigmatization of mental health. Like, I am on medication, many different ones because of it. And it's all just about surrounding by the right people. Like in high school, I did not have the right friends, or I was not surrounded by the best people. And that influenced me so much. I am now surrounded by great people that support me They remind me when to take my medications. They don't judge me. They remind me of my therapist's appointments and ask me how it went. They're really supportive about that. And I think it's definitely really important when you go off to college just to surround yourself by people that you know will support you and not trigger you or any other way. Like, you need to have a good foundation.
Just to touch on that a little bit, I know even in grad school, we'll start at the beginning in undergrad. All of my social hangouts involved alcohol, all of them. Being that all of my friends from undergrad are in Pennsylvania and I haven't seen them in quite a while, I haven't quite had to navigate the whole, hey, how are we going to hang out when I'm sober? Like, how are we gonna do that? So I'm still working on that, but I've told my friends and they all are very supportive. But in grad school, I lost a lot of my friends, not because they had any stigma attached to it, because it's social work and they have the educational background to understand, but all of our social hangouts involved alcohol. So it's very interesting and very strange, but similarly to Dana, I still have totally stellar friends. I have two in particular that just warm my heart, and they're so incredibly supportive. And when I started going to my own mutual aid meetings, they're like, "That's so cool. Can we go with you to support you? Like, what can we do? Do you want us to stop using in front of you? Like, what can we do to make you happy and safe and feel comfortable, because we love you?" And I'm like, thank you so much appreciated. And then I just kind of gave them my piece and we talked back and forth about it. And they're always so good at checking in and making sure that I feel loved. And I'm getting a little choked up because they make me so happy.
That was just really beautifully said by all of you. There were a couple of more things in the Q&A that I wanted to address before we hit our last question that I want to spend the most time on, but let me make sure that I have this correct. One person asked, is there a list of colleges in New York State that have recovery services? And the answer to that is yes and no. So Tompkins Cortland Community College is a part of the Association for Recovery in Higher Education, commonly referred to as ARHE. That is where I got my number of 143 collegiate recovery programs. That's just who has registered with them. There is a cost associated, and not everybody has the same access to funding to cover being a member of that kind of organization. So on the ARHE website, you can access a list of all of those campuses in the states, and you can filter it by specific state, by specific region, as close in as you want to get, and you will find us there. You'll find some other universities in New York State, such as UAlbany and Syracuse University, but that's a growing list, and it is by no means everybody. There may be other services available in the state that are not members but are still working to create and offer that. And then the other thing was Jody brought up the intersection of college drinking culture and sexual assault, and how to proactively counteract both of those issues, since they often go hand in hand. And that's definitely a big part of what we think about when we create these programs, is how to keep people safe and make them feel comfortable, not just from that, but from all sorts of issues. If anybody wants to comment on that, you are welcome to, but I don't want to ask anybody to share more than they want to. But it is definitely something that's on our mind as higher education professionals.
I think as someone who has an education based in social work, I think it's always important to remind people that regardless what happened to them, if they are a survivor of sexual assault, that if they were under the influence of anything, that is not a reason by any stretch of the imagination why what happened to them happened to them. No matter how much they happen to use, that was in no way a provocation of sexual assaults or generalized physical assault, and just really destigmatizing that. Because I know oftentimes, unfortunately, someone's use of substances is used as an excuse as to why something happened to them. And that is blatantly, like, point blank stop, not the case. Whatever happened to them because someone else did something to them, regardless of that person's sobriety at the time.
Beautifully said. So we have about 14 minutes left. And the final question that I have that I want to hear from each of you on, and please take as much time as you want, is what would you say to young people who are in recovery, who are thinking about going to college?
I definitely think it's important. I'm a planner. I like to plan. My plans definitely help me. And I like to have a plan. So if something happens where I'm feeling any type of way, who can I text? Who can I call? Where can I go for a walk? Can I set my timer and take it 5 minutes at a time? Can I read a book? Can I watch an episode? Can I do an exercise until I'm physically unable to go anywhere or do anything because I'm physically exhausted? So what can I do if I'm in a certain headspace to make sure that I am prevented from doing something? And then if the situation were to arise, who can I talk to afterwards? Who can I tell on myself to? And make sure I get that accountability piece so it really brings me back in so I don't get caught in this awful shame cycle. And how can I make sure that I stay okay in that whole thing and not feel pressured to do anything or, again, get caught in that shame cycle? And yeah, just definitely making sure I have a plan for stuff. And for young people going into college, in especially like outside of themselves in the college setting, researching where you can go. Definitely do some strategic Googling. If you don't know what programs are available, give the student office a call. Say, hey, what do you got? If you're an exercise person like myself, see how late the gym is open. If the gym closes at 7 p.m., is there a local gym that's open 24 hours where you can go and you can stay in that safe space? And definitely sticking with, I'm gonna use the capital T, true friends. So who can you be around that are supportive of you regardless? It's not about quantity, it's about quality here. So you might have 15 friends that are totally rad, but they're like kind of flaky, or you can have like 3 that are your ride or dies and they're absolutely fantastic. So that's my little token of advice.
So I basically was gonna say everything Ashton already said, but to piggyback off of him, no, study the schools you're looking into, and pick which one is the best plan for you. If you have 2 schools and you're like, wow, these are great schools, call one of them up, email people from the school and just be like, hey, like, what resources do you have on campus that I can use? It's really important to know those places in the case that you have a crisis, in case that something goes wrong, so that they have your back. They're there for you. They have your back. But it comes down to like which one has the best resources or the most resources. Another thing is just preparing yourself, knowing your supports, I think is a big one. My family is probably one of my biggest support systems, as well as my girlfriend. And just knowing that they're there for me in whatever circumstances, whatever goes wrong, is just really great to know. Yes. Yes.
So they basically said everything I wanted to say. I guess just to piggyback off that, college is a huge adjustment. I kept saying, oh, I can't wait to go to college. And then the first week I was there, I was crying, wanting my parents to come get me. And I think that's what everyone basically went through. And it's all about the support. You definitely need a group that's going to support you. And I would say use your recovery as like a goal. Like just you have to have that in your mind. Like for me, I want to go into psychology because of my recovery. And I just look at that as this is my end goal. Like that's where I want to be someday. So I may be failing a class and that's okay too. You need to know that failure is okay. You can take it next semester. You can change your major, whatever. It's okay to fail. People will help you out. You'll do fine. Just remember that these are the years that you're going to look back on. So don't waste it all just as studying away. You need to also have some fun in there. And just remind yourself daily that you're going to get through this and that the pain will end. So, yeah.
Just to follow up on that, is it possible to have fun while being in recovery? Ashton, you want to start?
Absolutely. I have had more fun in my own sobriety because I remember things. It's so fantastic because I can go out and I can dance the night away and have an absolutely splendid time. And I can wake up at like 8 a.m. the next morning and go on a walk and watch the sunshine go through the trees and not have an incredible headache. And I can be confident in the decisions that I make. I know a big problem for me was when I was under the influence, I would make decisions that weren't nice to myself or others. And that kind of brought me back into that shame cycle. And it made me feel really bad about a lot of the things I would do, I would say to myself or others. And I am just walking on sunshine now. Like there are definitely times where I miss it. But I have to kind of sit myself down and really think and say like, all right, would you have fun? Yes. But would you go home that night or have to spend the night somewhere and hate yourself until you fall asleep? No, that's a bad time. So I'm definitely having a much better time now. And I found this new love of seltzer water that I didn't have before, which is very interesting. So now I might not have a lot of food, but I definitely have a fridge stocked full of seltzer water.
100% me and Red Bull. How about you, Julia?
My girlfriend asked me the question. I can't remember how she phrased it, but it was basically like, why does alcohol make it more fun? So I take it as a challenge now. It's like, oh, you think I'm only fun when I'm drinking or when I'm high? Well, you're about to see something else because I'm sober and I'm going to have a great time. So that's kind of the way I have to think about it. Even on the times that I'm not having the greatest time, I'll get there. It's going to be okay. I feel so much better sober. It's been a lot of ups and downs, but I think that me being sober, not drinking, not smoking, not using was the best choice that I could make for my mental health. And I wouldn't trade it for anything at this point.
For me, like I don't see like with all the partying, like yeah, that's fun, but you can have fun with like the innocent, childish stuff. Like my friends and I will play games that we played when we were 10 years old and have the most fun. Like we were running around my room the other day trying to be like the shape as random objects. And it's like we were having the most fun of our lives. And I'm like, yeah, it's different than going out being like regular college students, but I'm having more fun and I'm laughing, we're making memories. So it's, I mean, you can still have fun for sure.
One small thing I want to add, there's nothing more fun than at the end of a wild and crazy night of dancing the night away with my friends, I get to go home and sleep in my own bed. That is the best thing because I know I'll have a pillow, I know I'll have a blanket, and I know my back won't hurt in the morning. That is a bucket of fun right there.
Love it. And I love you all so much. 100% I agree. My friends and I went out a couple Fridays ago to a kid's haunted house, and it was the most exciting and fun thing we've done. It was so fun. So if there's any other questions, I know there was one last one. The name of the organization that Tompkins Cortland is a part of is ARHE, the Association for Recovery in Higher Education. And then we have just one more question. We've got a few minutes left to answer it. When did you discover that substances were an issue for you in college, especially because it is such a norm for students? Let's start with Ashton like we do.
So at the time, I didn't. Was it an issue? Oh, heck yeah. But I had no idea. But I am a person that journals. I journal regularly. I should probably honestly journal more because it's gotten to like once a week or month or every 3 months at this point. But reading back at my journal entries, yikes. It was very chaotic and full of anxiety and full of these tirades where I was just so stressed and my thinking was chaotic and harmful. And it was not, I'm going to use this phrase, it was not a good time. It was not a good time. And it took a while. And it wasn't until very recently when I finally like really cut it out, that reflecting back on those journal entries and reflecting back on my reactions to everyday situations, and really like having that moment of, wow, like I just moved past something instead of brooding on it or making myself feel bad about myself, or even worse about my situation, or even worse, taking it out on someone else. And that's where that discovery really came in. Do I wish I had discovered it earlier? Yes. But I am very grateful that I am where I am now, because I know where I am now is so cliche, just the beginning. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see the person I'm going to become in my own journey. And yeah, but it is definitely a norm for college students. We've all seen every coming of age movie. There's always substance use, but that's not necessarily necessary. But it is what it is. Just being that person that says, hey, I don't drink. Because then that usually invites someone else to say, oh my gosh, I don't drink either. And then there's allyship, and it's super cool.
What about you, Julia? What do you think?
I didn't know either. It wasn't until I went to get help for my mental health and I had to take that assessment, and they were like, well, we're going to stick you in chemical dependency counseling. And I was like, oh, okay. And they were like, oh, but they're going to focus on your mental health too. It's like, okay. So since then I've been in with the same counselor for a year now, which is big for me because my attendance is usually not so good. And so looking back, my Snapchat memories pop up every now and then. And I think that's what hits me the hardest is like, girl, what were you doing? Like, I don't understand what you were doing. Like, it was awful. And I can't believe that I didn't know that something was up. Like, and just with everything that I've been through, like my family comes from a history of substance abuse. That was really difficult for us all to go through. And I just didn't pick up on it for myself. So like, yes, like Ashton said, I wish I had known earlier, but at the same time, like where I'm at now, like I wouldn't trade it for anything either.
say I'm still realizing like I'm in that in between. I mean, at Lemoyne, I haven't really been exposed to a lot of drugs and alcohol and partying, thankfully. But most of my time is just schoolwork and regular work. So it's like I don't have time for that if I actually want to pass these classes, because I've always used education as an escape, and I put myself as a try hard. I really got to try and do my best. It's just what I've always done. And so I'll just be doing hours and hours of homework. And if I have like a feeling like I want to use, like I want to smoke or I want to drink, I pull out my homework and I just start going at it because I always have hours worth of it. And it's just, I always use that, just my education as a distraction, basically.
All right. I just wanted to thank everyone for what an amazing session. The chat was lighting up the whole time.